Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Good evening from Orlando, a city whose tragedy has turned into the backdrop for one of the fiercest political rows of this already extraordinary electoral race. President Obama unleashed what felt like some 7 years of frustration towards the Republican nominee Donald Trump, warning that his anti-Muslim rhetoric would drive many young Americans towards radicalization. Today, Trump, who has consistently called Obama soft on terrorists, suggested obliquely, the president might actually be one. Conspiracy theory too far for many Democrats. And what of the community here itself? Well, today surgeons at Orlando's hospital told me they treated over 1,000 victims of gun crime every year. And we heard from a survivor who played dead to stay alive. But perhaps the most arresting details emerged of the actual killer. As witness suggested, he himself might have been gay. How do you describe a man who was angry, unstable, criminal and in denial? America has called Omar Mateen a terrorist, a radical Islamist, a homophobe and increasingly now a self-hater. As witnesses say, he frequented gay clubs himself over the course of several years. Was he a man so conflicted with his sexuality in a religion that didn't tolerate homosexuality? And if so, does that make America's response to this any different?
I met him one time at the bar. He was trying to pick up people, men. He's a homosexual and he was trying to pick up men. He would walk up to them and then he would maybe put his arm around them or something and maybe try to get them to dance a little bit or something and then go over and buy a drink or something. That's what people do at gay bars.
His is not the only voice. Others have come forward saying the killer's profile was on Grindr and other gay dating apps. He might have been casing out victims, or he might have been looking for sex. At the LGBT Centre in Orlando, they're offering support and counselling to survivors, families and friends. The director says he recognises the picture that's emerging.
It seems more leaning towards a closeted LGBT person, conflicted in their life somehow, who needed to take their vengeance out on their own demons and walked into this club to cleanse them, to try and cleanse themselves of their demons and take it out on other people.
Adam, a mental health counsellor, says he's seen the pattern many times, but he says it's easier for America to point to an external enemy than look at itself.
There's definitely an element of, people politicizing this, but I think there's something larger going on there. This is an LGBT issue. This is a mental health issue. This is something that we as Orlandoans and as Americans have to figure out how to make better. This isn't just there's an outside bad guy out there that we can point at.
Certainly the mass shooting has exposed two presumptive presidential nominees to a sharp examination of their political instincts in a time of crisis.
Now, Hillary Clinton, or as I call her, Crooked Hillary Clinton, she's as crooked as they come, refuses to even say the words radical Islam.
Americans, we don't need conspiracy theories and pathological self-congratulations. We need leadership, common sense, and concrete plans because we are facing a brutal enemy.
Now, by focusing on the Orlando killer's allegiance to ISIS, it's become much easier for those on the right of American politics to talk about the need for new immigration measures or firmer foreign policy. But for many Americans, this is a pretty domestic tragedy, both more mundane and more intractable. That toxic combination of what happens when mental health issues meet easy access to firearms. At the Orlando hospital, we hear powerful testimony from one of the survivors, Angel Jalon.
Some cops, which I wish I can remember his face or his name, because to this day I'm grateful for him. So he starts to drag me out across the street to the Wendy's, and I'm grateful for him, but the floor is just covered in glass. So he's dragging me out while I'm just getting cut my behind, my back, my legs. And I don't feel pain, but I just feel all this blood on me from myself, from my other people. And he just drops me off across the street, and I look over and there's just bodies everywhere.
Surgeons tell a packed room of Global Press they still have 27 of the shooting victims, 6 in intensive care. Thank you. Very quick question to the surgeons. I'm just doing the maths here. Over the course of your professional lifetimes, how many victims of gunshot wounds would you estimate that you had each treated?
I've been here 6 years in residency, so 11.
So you each say more than 10,000?
That number sounds reasonable.
Barack Obama arrives here in Orlando on Thursday in the midst of possibly the craziest confection yet. Intimations from Donald Trump that America's president may even be complicit in terror activities by Islamic extremists. This community, survivors and victims, are desperate for all of this and all of us to go away. But at this point in the electoral presidential cycle, nothing, it seems, is ever just about an appalling tragedy itself. Joining me down the line now from Los Angeles is Irshad Manji, who's the founder of the Moral Courage Project. Irshad, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsnight. And am I right in thinking you describe yourself as lesbian and Muslim without conflict?
Well, without conflict, for sure. You know, I came out to my very devout Muslim mother many years ago, and she told me, "You are my daughter, and my love for you is unconditional." So I've certainly been blessed with a wonderful parent. But in addition to that, I will say that, you know, we Muslims are taught that God is omniscient and all-powerful, all-knowing and all-powerful. And so surely he knew what he was creating when he created somebody like me. Does God make mistakes? Muslims would say absolutely not. So I have been able, through the love of my family and the love of God, to reconcile all that I am rather than lead a balkanized life. I'm very much at peace with being gay and Muslim.
And we were hearing elements of the Orlando killer's life there, suggestions that he'd been on gay dating apps, that he'd been frequenting some of the clubs himself over the years, that he'd beaten his first wife badly to the point where she was removed by her parents. Does this spell any pattern of behavior to you? Does this sound like a man who is a self-hater?
Honestly, there are so many cases of wife abuse and domestic violence all over the world that it would be reductionist and irresponsible for me, at least, to say that, yeah, this guy is absolutely a self-hater, or was. But clearly, you know, if he was scoping out potential sex partners or potential victims on apps like Grindr, there was something in him that was more than just religious. It was more than just angry. It may have been some kind of loathing instinct that brought him to do what he did. We simply don't know.
You sound as if you were very lucky in the love of your parents and the support you had, but many people of all religions will find it very hard, particularly in this case it sounds to be a practicing Muslim and to be a homosexual. What is the path forward there?
Well, let me first say that you're absolutely right. Many Muslims do find it difficult. And in fact, when I speak with young Muslims all over the world, one of the most common questions they ask of me is, how do I tell my parents that I am not straight? Some will use the word gay, but that is certainly a much wider concern within the Muslim community than most imams and elders you know, want to acknowledge. The path forward is actually cultural more than it is religious. You know, in Arab culture, there is a tradition, a custom known as honor. And while that sounds honorable, it actually is not. Honor refers to the reputation of the entire family. And so if somebody is accused of transgressing moral codes, then not only have you shamed yourself, according to this custom, you have shamed your entire family. Imagine the pressure that puts on young Muslims to shut up and conform. And so the path forward is to redefine honor to mean individual dignity, individual integrity and wholeness, rather than any one of us being the property of our families.
So do you believe there is a clash of civilizations between these two?
Emily, I don't believe that. Here I sit before you live, you know, as somebody who, as you rightly pointed out, is completely reconciled as both gay and Muslim. I was born in Africa, very different values than the country in which I grew up, which is Canada. And it is that pluralism and that freedom that allowed me to ask many, many questions, both of myself and of others. And thank God for those freedoms, because that is what allowed me to understand that you don't have to be one or the other, that God has created us complicated, and any God that is majestic will not be manufacturing widgets. He will be, you know, he will be creating truly divine creatures.
Irsha Manji, thank you very much indeed. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and you can see the voices that are coming out now, that even though it feels like some of the politics is overtaking the narrative, the argument on both sides, this is a community that is still asking many questions, trying to understand exactly where the lead, if you like, whether it's about mental health, whether it's about issues within the community, whether it's about how a man who's been checked over by the FBI 3 times can still go ahead and buy a gun. This is a community that essentially needs to be left in peace.
Emily, thank you.